All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get started today. Welcome to the next episode in the Hidden in Plain Sight webinar series. I originally called this one Gas Stations, the New Pharmacy, but it really wasn't what I was getting at. It's more about the convenience of convenience stores. I want to just put a little note in here. I'm sorry if it sounds as if I'm reading on these webinars. I am. There's just so much information to share, and if I just talk through it, I'll probably start to ramble or I'll miss some of the information that I want to give you. So today we will learn why we are talking about gas stations and convenience stores, the trends of gas stations, and what is available in these service station stores. Why have gas stations become so popular for our kids to access substances? There are several reasons. Some are the exact same reasons why convenience stores were created and why we stop and buy items there. Today, gas stations are available in almost every town. Even the smallest gas station store might have options for purchasing items that we will be talking about today. In fact, it may be easier to get some of the items we will be talking about in our small town stores because those small towns don't have specialty shops like smoke shops. Regardless of what products the convenience store carries, they are there for convenience while on the road. Most convenience stores have hours that are earlier and later than your traditional stores, making them more convenient. Driving through my own town, I can go past several gas stations that are open before 6 a.m. in the morning, but only a couple of other grocery type stores are open. Convenience stores are accessible to people of all ages. Whether you're stopping there to fill up with gas, use the restroom, or purchase a quick snack, there are no restrictions on age to entering the building. The layout of most convenience stores also promotes shopping for additional impulse items. For many, the idea of convenience stores being cheap is disputable. We may pay a higher price for many items in a gas station and convenience store, but it makes it worth it because of the convenience. In addition, most convenience stores run promotions on items that can make them cheaper. Think about it. I can get 2 bottles of Coke for $3 instead of $1.89 a piece, which makes it cheaper than going to the grocery store. I can drink one of those now and save the other one for later. Look at the convenience of that. These deals and promotions are not limited to drinks and candy. You'll see sales on energy drinks, tobacco products, beer, and other items, which will come up as we go through this webinar today. In July of 2024, a study found that the top 5 convenience store purchases were snacks and beverages, essentials such as toiletry and personal care items, tobacco products and their accessories, and small impulsive purchases. One study showed that just over 65% of purchases from convenience stores are used immediately, and almost 80% are consumed within the hour of purchase. This makes sense. Convenience stores originated to provide quick shopping options for customers on the go. It's in the name. They provide convenience. These gas station stores have modernized since the first convenience store, which was a 7-Eleven built in 1927 in Texas. Today, with advanced technology, you don't even have to enter the store if you don't want to. In order to make the store portion of these businesses more profitable, convenience stores need to provide what people are looking for. They provide the immediate gratification of a sweet treat or a pick-me-up drink while skipping the hassle of a big store. I researched several articles that talked about increasing sales in convenience stores. They mentioned 2 specific items: beer and tobacco products. Beer is one of the most profitable and popular products in convenience stores. People who are short on time would rather buy a case of beer at the local gas station than have to make the trek to a more specialized store like a liquor store. Many convenience stores offer a large variety of beers and wine coolers so that it is easier for consumers to select from their offerings rather than spending time or money elsewhere. In doing research for this webinar, I have stopped at several convenience stores over the last few weeks. One store I went into was quite impressive. It had 9 drink coolers. That was the most I had seen in any convenience store. 5 of those were filled with beer and alcoholic beverages. whether that was wine coolers, hard lemonades, those type of things. Next to that cooler was the energy drink cooler, top to bottom with energy drinks. The next cooler had only water, and the final two coolers shared all of the juice, soda, and non-carbonated drinks. It was obvious what this particular store prioritized. Tobacco products are the number one way stores can increase sales. There are many forms of tobacco and nicotine products available these days: cigarettes, cigarillos, chewing tobacco, pouches, e-cigarettes, vapes, pens, etc. It was interesting that the article pointed out that convenience stores can increase sales of tobacco products by placing them behind the cashier to limit theft. That tip was not to decrease access for underage users, but to increase sales. In one of the articles, there was a note that said, quote, "The products in these categories are highly regulated and age restricted. So if you choose to stock these, ensure your store has the proper licensing and processes to maintain proper age verification." End quote. Many service stations, convenience stores, gas stations, whatever you want to call them, have these types of signs in their doors and windows to try to deter underage shoppers. And yet, I still know of underage individuals who know which stores to shop at without getting any type of hassle. Tall Cop, a police officer who has a podcast about drug trends and does a lot of conference presentations, he suggests this strategy when it comes to looking at marketing. Look past the obvious and look next to the obvious. If you go into a gas station and see 3 coolers, Coke in the cooler on the right and Pepsi in the cooler on the left, you can assume that some kind of soda is in the middle. Same with beer, tobacco, and other products. Look to the left and look to the right. But also look at the implications of what they are advertising. In this picture, it is hard to see, but there is a Red Bull, Marlboro, and Coke poster. What message might that give the consumer? Maybe it's just that you can get an energy drink, some cigarettes, and a Coke. Or maybe it's saying something else. This is a gas station that I had to stop and take a picture of. From the entrance of the parking to the storefront, it had over 24 advertisements and posters on it. There was not one advertisement that was not related to alcohol, tobacco, or nicotine products. After taking the picture of the front and the employee seeing me and watching me do so, I didn't feel like I could go inside, look around, and ask questions. But I stopped at another gas station down the road to see if I could buy a vape. They told me they didn't sell any vapes, but that if I went down to this particular gas station, and they referenced this one, I could get any kind of vape or any other product that I might want. I thought that was probably the case when I stopped to take the picture. Thank you to this other store for confirming those suspicions.
Perhaps it started with caffeine supplements, where drivers who needed a boost could quaff the drug so they could continue their road trip. Now the range of substances pervaded in gas stations may produce opioid-like impact, says Michael Fingerhood, a substance use disorders expert at Johns Hopkins.
Some of them are just going to go use fentanyl. It's cheap, $1, $3, $6. I think it's going to be cheaper than any of these other things that you would buy at a gas station mart, which should have no business selling any of this stuff. Who uses these things? It's usually someone who's having trouble coping, under stress, who's looking for a way to escape. Unfortunately, the same way a lot of people use alcohol, and they're afraid of fentanyl and the drug dealers, and they say, oh, this is being sold at a shop. It must be safer.
Fingerhood says the bad news is they can be just as dangerous as the more obvious drugs, and they're hard to identify when someone does present at an ED. At Johns Hopkins, I'm Elizabeth Tracy.
So what are we able to buy at convenience stores? Vapes, which if you're unfamiliar with vapes, I did a previous webinar on vapes a couple months ago, and you can find that on the website. But vapes are a regular item in many convenience stores. When you think about it, those under 21 are not supposed to be able to enter a smoke shop, but they can enter a convenience store. In one podcast, they talked about how convenience stores and smoke shops are offering deals on their vapes because they have such an overage in supply. The manufacturers are making upgrades and updates so quickly that the old product, which might have been delivered just a few weeks prior, are now discounted at cheap rates. The only regulation around convenience stores selling vapes in Utah are that they need to have a retail tobacco license and require the person purchasing the vape to be at least 21. However, once again, we all know that kids are using these products and they're finding ways around that age requirement. A product that is growing in popularity are nicotine pouches. There are a variety of brands, but Zyn seems to be the most popular in convenience stores and online. Despite being tobacco-free, Zyn pouches contain nicotine salts and are marketed as providing a nicotine buzz without the harmful effects of smoking. Zyn pouches are used by placing the pouch between the gum and the lips. These pouches don't create the black saliva that needs to be spit out like chew, dip, snuff, or spitting tobacco. According to the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health, pouches may help adult smokers quit, but they could also unintentionally be encouraging young people to start using nicotine products. These pouches contain anywhere between 1.5 and 15 milligrams of nicotine. Comparing that to a cigarette typically contains about 10 to 12 milligrams of nicotine, but only around 1 to 2 milligrams are actually inhaled. Nicotine salts dissolve over about 30 minutes as all of the nicotine enters into your blood system. One author provided this guidance. To use Zyn pouches safely, please choose a nicotine pouch according to your tolerance level. If you've never used any, you don't know what your tolerance level is, and we have students who are starting with these high level of nicotine pouches. The long-term health effects are unknown, and nicotine exposure can harm brain development in teens and young adults, leading to addiction and potential long-term consequences. Doctors warn against the short-term harms of increased problems around oral health, gum irritation and disease, tooth decay, and reduced saliva. Many people experience nausea, vomiting, and mouth ulcers from using these pouches. When nicotine enters the bloodstream, it can increase blood pressure and heart rate, leading to heart disease. In an article released just yesterday, November 24th, 2024, they found a 641% increase in sales of nicotine pouches across all brands between 2019 and 2022. We all know that data lags a couple of years behind what is actually happening, and we're seeing an increase of these pouch uses. Actors, athletes, and political leaders have been caught using these pouches in the middle of games, during political conventions, and one actor, Josh Brolin, who is seen here, said it is so second nature to him. He admits to using pouches 24 hours a day, and his wife has watched him put in a pouch in the middle of the night while he is still sleeping. Zyn and other nicotine pouches are not regulated by FDA as a nicotine replacement product, although they advertise that that might be their usage. This actually makes sense that the FDA hasn't approved of them when a pouch has more nicotine than the product they would be replacing. Nicotine pouches have the same regulations as cigarettes and vapes in that you have to be 21 to purchase. On Zyn's website, they say they take the usage of their product by underage minors very seriously, and yet we know we have minors who are using them. This is one that I never thought that I would be sharing and giving information about, and yet here I am. In both the US and Canada, you can find reports warning against the use of any of the Rhino products. The FDA found more than 25 Rhino brand products with unlabeled and dangerous ingredients that were sometimes illegal. One specific product contains several ingredients used in prescription medication, which can be unsafe in unregulated amounts, according to the article. One of the ingredients, and I'm going to say this completely wrong, but I'm going to give it a shot, N-desmethylsibutramine, was previously on the market as a dietary supplement, but has since been withdrawn from the approved list because of safety concerns. You might ask, why in the world would we need to be talking about sexual enhancement drugs in this presentation? Here's why. In one of our local schools, we had an elementary student get these from a convenience store and bring them to share with his friends. They didn't know what they were for, but it had a cute little rhino on the packaging, and look at that awesome little container the pill comes in. Isn't that cute? Whether the student purchased it or stole it is unknown, but the fact that they had access to it is concerning. Another concern is that sometimes all it takes is just a little mixing of ingredients to have your desired substance. Lean, also known by a variety of other names like purple drink, scissor syrup, tussin, walk, act, Texas tea, dirty Sprite, or perp, is a concoction of dextromethorphan found in the over-the-counter cough syrups, sometimes also called codeine. Then that product is mixed with Sprite, Mountain Dew, or Fanta, sometimes a few shots of alcohol with a Jolly Rancher type candy to mask the flavor of the syrup. Several popular ways of drinking this might be a doubled up cup, a red Solo cup, or a baby bottle. Some stores are starting to ask for IDs to purchase cold medicines, but not all, and even fewer convenience stores are asking. Lean gets its name from the effect it has on people who drink it. They tend to lean to one side the more they consume the substance. The effects of lean are like those of any other addictive opioids, such as oxycodone and heroin. Some common effects of lean include euphoria, relaxation, feeling tired and slow, irritability, and experiencing dizziness and loss of concentration. Typically, its effects begin to kick in within 30 to 45 minutes of drinking the mixture, though differing amounts of cold medicine can shorten or increase the onset times. The effects can last from about 4 to 6 hours. Some of the more serious side effects of lean include slowed heart rate and breathing, seizures, dental decay, hallucinations, and impaired vision. If you ask someone if they would do heroin, they would most likely tell you no, that's likely to kill you. But then they might not have any hesitation to drink perp because it's safe, right? It's just a little cold syrup, soda, and candy. Another product that can be found in most smoke shops, but also in some convenience stores, is kratom. Kratom is a plant that comes from Southeast Asia. Its leaves are crushed into product to be smoked, made into tea, or most commonly, taken in a capsule form. This substance has interesting impacts on the user. If consumed in low doses, it has a stimulant type effect, resulting in increased alertness, energy, and talkativeness. Those taking high dosages are feeling a more sedative type response. Kratom creates a variety of side effects in the body, including nausea, vomiting, insomnia, weight loss, increased urination, and sweating, to name a few. More impactful are the psychotic delusions and hallucinations that have been reported by those who have developed a psychological and physical dependence on the product. Kratom is not regulated by the Controlled Substance Act and has not been approved by the FDA for any medical use. However, there are some regulations around it. In Utah, it is regulated under the Kratom Consumer Protection Act, KCPA. This act mandates clear labeling so that it is safe and a pure product. It says that you must be at least 18 years old to purchase, and vendors must comply with all regulations outlined by the KCPA. So it has the same symptoms or same effects as heroin. And now we're going to say, we are going to start trusting our suppliers to be open and honest with their product because they are following the KCPA.
Tianeptine is a drug that likely can be found in your local gas station, along with caffeine bombs and other mind-altering substances. Michael Fingerhood, a substance use disorder expert at Johns Hopkins, says while tianeptine is just the latest entry to this lineup, it's been preceded by kratom, implicated in lots of ED visits.
Kratom's been around for a while. Kratom, they advertise in the open, they have big signs, best Kratom. Kratom has some opioid-like activity, but on social media, there's a big pro-Kratom population that tout how useful it is. And there are people who say, well, I got off fentanyl by using Kratom, but then Kratom has risk too, similar to how it used some of the opioid use disorder.
Fingerhood is stymied by the legality of selling what are frankly drugs, packaged attractively and named enticingly at gas stations and convenience stores, but is skeptical about the ability of any authority to provide oversight. At Johns Hopkins, I'm Elizabeth Tracy.
Tianeptine is also known as gas station heroin because it is a cheap and accessible substance that acts similar to heroin. This is pretty scary when you follow the trends of the opioid epidemic. Many heroin addicts report that they never thought they would be doing heroin, but it was too expensive to maintain their pain pill addiction, so they turned to heroin, which gave them the same response, even more extreme, but much cheaper. Now we have a product available in our convenience stores that is cheaper and has the same effects as heroin. In low doses, tianeptine is actually an antidepressant found in Europe, Asia, and Latin America. However, it is not approved for these purposes in the US. It is most commonly found in products promoting weight loss, dietary supplements, sexual performance, and energy boosters. Taken in high dosages, it can cause drowsiness, confusion, difficulty breathing, headaches, dry mouth, comas, and death. Long-term usage has led to addictive dependence similar to other opioids, and the withdrawal process may include agitation, anxiety, chills, muscle pain, vomiting, and sweating. This next video is a little bit longer, but it addresses some of the challenges that we've been talking about today. The video was released earlier this year, so it is fairly new.
The Food and Drug Administration has issued warnings about a potentially addictive dietary supplement that's widely available in the U.S. Ali Rogan has the latest.
The FDA is asking Americans not to purchase or use any products from the supplemental brand Neptune's Fix. It contains a substance called tianeptine. Some countries have approved the drug to treat depression and anxiety. It's unapproved in the U.S., but readily available on store shelves and online. It's been nicknamed gas station heroin, and it can be highly addictive. An uptick in use has led the FDA to issue several warnings about tianeptine and its potential side effects, including seizures, loss of consciousness, and death. Dr. Peter Cohen is an associate professor of medicine at Harvard Medical School and joins me now. Thank you so much, Dr. Cohen. Can you explain exactly what tianeptine is?
Sure, Ali. Tianeptine is a pharmaceutical drug originally produced in Europe as an antidepressant. Unfortunately, at higher levels, it can be addictive, and for that reason, has not gotten widespread use. It has never been approved for use for any medical reason in the United States.
If it has not been approved for use, how is it that it can be sold in the United States?
So what we see as a common and sadly tragic pattern is that many companies take foreign drugs and introduce them directly to consumers in the United States by selling them as if they are dietary supplements. And they just appear on the market and start selling them to consumers.
We spoke earlier to two health professionals who have seen patients who have been using tianeptine, and I want to play some of what they told us.
These patients definitely have increased heart rates, they're very agitated, and they will admit that they use a lot of the product. So in other words, that they're using it very routinely, that they've built up such a high tolerance to it and a craving for it that that they'll go to great lengths to get it. The presentation of the withdrawal is going to be very similar to somebody who would potentially be going through oxycodone withdrawal, heroin withdrawal.
We were putting a fair number of people actually in our intensive care units. And we had to put them in there just because they were becoming so agitated, so confused. There was concerns for heart problems, concerns for people having seizures. And so some people, like with many withdrawal patterns, may just feel a little bit uncomfortable. A fair number of people get very, very ill and require very close monitoring with it.
You heard that last doctor say a fair number of people that he's seeing. Do we have a sense of just how big this problem is with this substance?
Yeah, it's really ticked up over the last decade. So back before 2015, we had never heard of tianeptine here. And poison control calls, reports to the FDA, very serious ones like that were described, from seizures to stopping breathing to the point of intubation and deaths, have all been reported, and they're coming in more frequently.
The FDA has issued several warnings over the past 6 years, and we should also note here that Neptune's Fix has agreed to a voluntary recall. But are warnings all that the FDA can do? Why are their hands seemingly so tied?
Right. So there's two problems here. One is how it got on the market in the first place, and that's because there's no need for companies to vet products that they sell as dietary supplements with the FDA before they're being sold. That's a major problem and would require a change to the law. But there's a second major problem here, which is that the FDA has been aware of tianeptine being imported into the United States since 2015. That's been 9 years. And like you mentioned, it was in 2018 when they first warned about tianeptine. So the fact that it's been many years since the FDA was aware of the risks and has done nothing other than issue warnings to consumers and to the company is frankly embarrassing, as they're neglecting their responsibility to protect the public from dangerous dietary supplements.
Does this represent negligence on the part of the FDA, or is this simply how the regulatory framework has been constructed and has existed for so long?
So the fact that tianeptine is sold in the United States in the first place back in 2018, there's no negligence on the FDA's part. That's how the situation is structured, our regulatory framework is structured. However, the fact that it's still sold today and that people are still dying and ending up in intensive care units due to tianeptine falls completely on the FDA not doing their part, ensuring that the dangerous supplements are removed from the marketplace.
Several states have already taken the steps of banning tianeptine. Do we expect other states to go in that direction?
Unfortunately, with the FDA not moving definitively as they need to, and they could, the states are left to fend for themselves, to protect their own citizens against dangerous dietary supplements such as tianeptine. So I would expect more states to move aggressively against these products.
Is there a role that Congress could play in addressing this?
So Congress could have two very impactful roles. Number one, they could ask the FDA to enforce the law. And that is, when there's dangerous dietary supplements that they're off, they're removed from store shelves, and the FDA uses all their enforcement potential, including mandatory recalls, to do that job. The second thing they would need to do, though, if we're going to protect consumers from the next tianeptine down the road, is reform the law so that the FDA can at least ensure that products that are introduced into the United States as dietary supplements are not foreign dangerous drugs.
There are other dietary supplements out there that also are not regulated by the FDA or approved. Kratom, Phenibut among them. What are your concerns about those substances?
Right. So Kratom and Phenibut are two other drugs that are sold as dietary supplements but shouldn't be. And the FDA is not doing enough to get those products off store shelves. We've actually done a study of Phenibut where we looked at what happened to brands of Phenibut before and after FDA warnings. Well, we found that dosages of the Phenibut actually increased in the products after FDA warnings. So the FDA's actions are inadequate to date, and they need to do a lot more, because it's not just these three products, tianeptine, Kratom, Phenibut, but more than a dozen other foreign drugs that are being sold currently as dietary supplements in the United States.
Dr. Peter Cohen, Associate Professor of Medicine at Harvard Medical School, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure, Ali.
I think it's interesting that so many of these products are marketed as dietary supplements, energy boosters, and sexual performance drugs. None are approved by the FDA for any of the purposes, and yet you can find them in a variety of convenience stores. They're not marketed as tianeptine, phenibut, or kratom, but have fun names like Neptune Fix. Just a reminder that most of our kids aren't going to gas stations for illicit purposes, but you might have some who are. One of the things I have learned from doing this webinar series is that as soon as one product is identified as concerning and regulations are imposed, another one will come along to replace it. Right now, it might be about Zan pouches, kratom, and tianeptine. Tomorrow, it will be about something else. We need to stay actively engaged in educating ourselves and others about what to watch for. Maybe take the opportunity to check out your local convenience store to see how convenient it really is. If you missed any of the previous webinars, they are recorded and can be found on the News Center, nucenter.org mental health supports page. You can scan this QR code or go to the website listed and it'll take you directly to the list of webinars. If you are an educator and have an education license and want relicensing hours, you need to complete the form for each webinar you watch. Credit will be given after the final webinar at the end of the year. Just a reminder, we will not have a webinar next month in December. Thank you for watching and have a great holiday season.